I got the idea that I wanted to answer some questions about the Camino de Santiago while it's still fresh in my mind. I just finished like 10 days ago and I'm in all the Facebook groups and I see all the questions come up and then how generous people are with giving their advice. And I feel like the best is like personal experience. So I'm just going to answer a bunch of questions about it. I'm not sure how many. Maybe I'll count before I post this and it'll be in the title, but let's dive right in. Question number 1. How did I choose the route that I chose? So I went with the Portuguese coastal route and it was a combination of things. I would say I love the ocean, so getting to walk along the coast was a huge plus for me. Also, the relative ease. So this trail is much shorter, it's much flatter than the main popular French way. So that factored into it. And also being able to fly directly into the city of Porto and just start on foot from there without needing to take a bus or a train or anything to my starting point was also a plus for me. Question number 2. What was the most challenging part of preparing for the Camino? I would definitely say trying to understand the route and the stages of the route, like how far I would walk every day, what towns I would sleep in, because there are 1,001 different ways to do it, and you can stop in different places depending on how far you want to walk and where you want to stay. So trying to find out what was going to work for me was very tough, and I spent a lot of time reading blogs, watching YouTube videos, even using Chat GPT to try to come up with an itinerary for what my stages would look like. So that's something I would love to share with you. Maybe I'll share my route in the description of this video so you can see what stages I did, if that would be helpful. Okay, question number 3. How much did you train before beginning the Camino de Santiago? I was gonna say not at all, but I actually did put on a backpack, fill it with stuff, and take 2 long walks where I was living at the time in Hawaii. And I think it was only 8 kilometers and then 11 kilometers. And yeah, actually I remember those kicking my butt. It was so hard. But in my experience, once you get on the Camino, it's different. Yeah, it's just different. So I only took two walks and that was my training. Other than that, I didn't really train. Question number 4. What do you wish you had packed but didn't? I don't know if this will be helpful to anyone, but it's my truth. My laptop. So just a bit about me. I've been traveling full-time for the last 13 years. I don't have a home. I'm a nomad. And for the last year, I've had the great privilege to work for a nonprofit online. It hasn't always been that way, but I do have a remote job right now, which is a real blessing. And I'm able to do all my work from my phone, which of course I brought my phone and I've been working from my phone, but it's much easier and nicer and I can focus more when I have my laptop. But when I put on my backpack without it versus with it, I was like, I'm just gonna work from my phone. But I do kind of regret that, especially now that I'm done with my Camino. I really need my laptop and it's expensive and also potentially such a headache to have it shipped from the US because of customs clearance and import fees and things like that. So my answer is my laptop, but I know that probably isn't a helpful answer for you. My packing list was really spot on, so hopefully I can provide more help when it comes to actually sharing what I did pack that was so helpful to me. Okay, number 5, what did you pack that ended up being unnecessary? I would say just some extra clothes. I think I started with another pair of shorts and one other top, and I just do laundry every couple of days, and then I don't really see the need for the extra clothing and the weight that it presents. So definitely just bring 2 outfits maximum. I brought 2 hiking outfits and 1 dress for evenings, really lightweight dress, and that was perfect. So I just got rid of the excess. I donated it at one of the hostels I stayed in. How did you manage your backpack weight? So this one my family actually helped me out with so much. So my mom and her husband are hikers. They got married on top of a mountain, and that's one of their favorite things to do is hike together in the wilderness. So I was at their house before I started the Camino, and they helped me understand my backpack, helped me with all the straps. And I would say the biggest thing is put what you want in your backpack and then obviously put it on your shoulders. I think the next step they taught me is to kind of lean over and buckle it on your hips. It should sit and be supported primarily on your hips. And then you can adjust these straps that kind of make it tighter or looser around your shoulders, and also the one up here that brings it in closer to your back. So just kind of mess around with the straps until it feels comfortable, but maybe have someone help you, or just take this advice that you should really be carrying it on your hips and not so much with your shoulders. So yeah, that's how I manage the weight. Pack light. How did I choose when to start my Camino? So once I got the word from God that I should do the Camino, I pretty much started as soon as I was available, which happened to be in August. And the weather was perfect for the Portuguese coastal ways. Starting in late August was a dream. But as far as the conditions of the albergues, in regards to bed bugs, I would say that later in the season is not better. If I did it again, which I will do it again, I would do it in the spring, because that's after they treat the facilities for bed bugs, and hopefully there shouldn't be any. But by the end of the season, when all the pilgrims have come through, there can be more problems with bed bugs. So not to deter you from doing a later in the season Camino, I got bit on 3 separate occasions, and yeah, I could do a whole video on how to protect yourself from bed bugs. But until then, definitely Google the proper steps to follow to avoid encountering them, and what to do if you do encounter them. But yeah, I chose based on my availability. Next time I will do it in the spring. What is your best tip for someone planning their daily stages? Hands down, download the Wise Pilgrim app. I struggled so much before I decided to do this, and then once I did this, it was super simple. So you can like Google all the different things and see all the potential different routes, but to me, they were just all swirling in my mind, and it was so confusing what I should actually do. But if you download the app, you will see all the potential stops, what's available at each one. Is there accommodation? Is there a restaurant? Is there an ATM? Is there a hospital? All these things. And then you can slide and select, okay, I want this stop. And then it'll show you the distance to the next ones. So you can choose how far you want to walk and the places you want to stop and what you will be able to access there. So I did all of my stage and route planning through the Wise Pilgrim app, and I highly recommend it. How did you stay on track with navigation? Again, the Wise Pilgrim app. So if you're in the app, you will also see in the top right corner, there's a map. If you click the map, you will see a map and a little blue dot indicating where you are, and then the trail in red or blue, whatever color that is represented by that trail, and you can see if you've deviated or if you're on it. And I would recommend checking that every 20 minutes. That way, if you do wander off track, you're never more than 20 minutes away from getting back on track. But again, it's really easy, or not again, I don't think I've said this, but the trails are really well marked with the scallop shell and the yellow arrows. So you could navigate with just that, but I also like checking the app, so Wise Pilgrim is my answer. Did you book accommodation in advance or did you wing it? So I did a combination of booking one day in advance or booking on the same day. And only once did I just show up and ask if they had a bed available, which was actually when I arrived in Santiago. So yeah, a combination. I wouldn't recommend booking the whole thing in advance, because part of the beauty of it is seeing what each day brings and where the Lord is leading you, or just where you want to travel, and kind of being more flexible and free to have little discoveries along the way. But you can definitely do booking one day in advance, booking same day, and then occasionally just showing up. How much did your Camino cost per day? I'm super bad at keeping a budget. I'm much more of a qualitative person, so I think in terms of, oh, I've been spending a lot, or oh, I've been spending a little. And I was aiming for spending a little. My goal was to spend about $10 a night on accommodation and not much more than that on food, so maybe $20 a day, but I think realistically I spent more like $35 a day. If you were really strict, I think you could do $20 a day. There are donativos, there are municipal albergues, there are religious like convents and monasteries that will offer you accommodation for $10 or less. And then if you grocery shop, you can also keep your food cost under $10 a day. So I think $20 a day is possible, but maybe challenging. But I think aiming for that, what realistically happened for me was around $35 a day, and some days much more. So maybe my average was $40 a day. Hopefully that helps. How did I manage my money along the way? So in my experience, most places on the Portuguese coastal way took cards. So I mostly used my credit card, and then I pay it off every month for points. So I wasn't paying with my debit card, I was paying with my credit, but obviously that's your personal choice. But places do take cards for the most part. ATMs are generally in every, or definitely in every big city. And then there are some in the smaller villages, but there are some stretches where ATMs are kind of sparse. And you'll be able to see that in the Wise Pilgrim app, so I recommend that again. But I always did carry around 100 euros or less for little small vendors or some coffee shops that don't take cards. What did I wear on the Camino? So I had a pair of cargo pants, the ones that zip into shorts, and then I had just a regular t-shirt, or probably like an athletic t-shirt. I'm not sure exactly what material it's made of, but I think the brand was Nike, so something that dries quickly. I don't know what other specs they have, but a t-shirt, cargo pants, and then some running shorts and a tank top. Actually, as much as I love the look of the tank top, I wouldn't wear a tank top again because I was often putting my scarf underneath my backpack straps because it was rubbing me raw because I had my shoulders exposed. So yeah, those were my hiking outfits, and then I would interchange them. And then I had a super lightweight dress, a wrap dress for the evenings, and it all held up super well, albeit my Camino was pretty short. It was 260 kilometers. So I'd be curious, like the wear, especially under the armpits and maybe at the lower back, if I had done a longer Camino. What type of shoes worked best for me? I love the phrasing of this question because what works for you might be different than what works for me. But what worked flawlessly for me that I would recommend is hiking sandals. And they should be right here. Let me grab them so I can show you. These are my camel crowns. I got them on Amazon for $20, and they were a dream to wear. They're adjustable in 3 places. So yeah, I wore them either with socks or without socks, and they never gave me a blister. They were always really comfortable on the bottoms of my feet, and they gave me some like bounce, so it was easier on my joints. And I will wear them again and again and reorder if they ever break or anything like that. So hiking sandals. And then my socks were Injinji, they're the toe socks. I think that's how you say it. And then I also had just a regular pair of wool socks. So sometimes I would wear a double layer of socks, and then my hiking sandals. Did I use walking poles or trekking poles? I did not. As I was saying in the beginning, the Portuguese coastal way is pretty flat. So I've heard they really come in handy on elevation, but there wasn't too much of that on this route. So nope, I didn't need them, and I was happy with that choice. How did I handle laundry on the Camino? So just about every single accommodation you go to will have a hand washing sink. It's usually outdoors, and it's just a little tub that has some grooves on it. And I brought my own soap, but sometimes it's provided. So you just get your clothes wet, you soap them up, you kind of rub them together, rinse them out, and then there will be a clothesline for you to dry your clothes in the sun. So I recommend doing it as soon as you arrive to the albergue. You know, bathe yourself, wash your clothes, put them out to dry, and then enjoy your evening. So I did that not every day, but maybe every other day. If it was cold and I didn't sweat too much, then maybe every 3 days. So yeah, super simple. One thing I wish I would have known before starting. Okay, so the Portuguese way, it has many different ways within it. So there's the coastal, which I did, and it hugs the coast in the beginning, and then it actually scoots inland a little bit. There's also the central, and those two are clear in my mind. And then there's one called the littoral, or littoral. And I think my understanding now is that that one actually hugs the coast the entire way. And it is marked as well. I think it's called the Senda Litoral, but that is, I guess you could say, the true coastal, because I ended up walking inland a lot of the way, even on the official coastal route, because that's just the way it goes. But the Senda Litoral is a path that actually stays next to the water. So yeah, I wish I knew about that trail. So some days you're free to take it. My friend, he did a lot on the actual coast, and the days that I made the decision to just stick to the coast, you know, keep the ocean on my left, how hard can it be? Those were really good days. But also the traditional coastal path that sometimes is not coastal is nice too. So you can take your pick. How did you get to your starting point? So if you're coming from the US, this is what I did. There is an airline, it used to be called Norwegian, but now it's Norse Atlantic, and they have flights across the pond for usually around $200, $300 one way. So I booked my flight from New York to Paris for I think $260. So I just took a regional flight within the US to New York City, and then I took that $260 flight from New York to Paris. And then once in Paris, I took a regional flight for like $30 to the city of Porto, which is where I started. So if you have the option to do a regional flight to New York City, cross the pond with Norse Atlantic, and then a regional flight within Europe, you can start your Camino for around $300 or less. I think a lot of people anticipate that this ticket should cost like $1,000. I've been traveling the world for 13 years, and I've never paid more than $400 to get anywhere. You just have to be flexible and then kind of think outside the box with different legs, and Skyscanner can help with that. Yeah, take some practice, but that is one way that you can do it if you're coming from the US. Did you ever get lost? And if so, how did you get back on track? For me, no. With the app and the signpost, I didn't think there was a chance to get lost, but I did hear of some other people just not seeing the signpost and wandering really far off track. Some people had to walk like 15 extra kilometers because they got lost. I heard stories like that. And then I know my friend took risks trying to follow the coast sometimes, and sometimes they paid off and then sometimes they didn't. So it depends like how much you're paying attention and how much risk you want to take going in one direction that you think is going to work, but maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if you stick to the route and you have an app, it's pretty foolproof. How did you stay organized and keep track of everything? If you're talking about like logistics, I pretty much relied on the app. If you're talking about stuff, I think this is actually where it's a bit more difficult, and I would love to share how I ended up making the best system for me. So I pretty much keep in my backpack only what I need to access in the evening or in the afternoon when I get to my albergue. So that's like changes of clothes and stuff for sleep. Pretty much everything else went in my front bag. So that's like all my credentials. You know, I keep snacks in there. I keep my cell phone in there, chargers, sunscreen, sunglasses, everything that you might need throughout the day goes in the front. So yeah, I definitely loved working out that system because the first day I had to take off my backpack several times, and then the second day I learned and I sorted it out differently. How did you choose which albergues to stay in? I did use Wise Pilgrim for this as well, and if you click on the albergues in the app, you can see kind of the amenities that they offer. So do they take reservations or not? Is it exclusive to pilgrims or not? Do they have a washing machine or a washing area? Do they have a kitchen? So that informed a lot of my decisions, but some of my best decisions were made through word of mouth. So when I heard this is the best albergue on the trail, I went there and it turned out it was my favorite. So this leads into the next question. Which was your favorite albergue on the Camino? And for me, it was Casa do Sardau, and that means House of the Lizard, and it's the one that I'm at right now. I liked it so much. I came back to live here for 3 weeks. So yeah, I just had such an amazing time here. It's a beautiful property, lots of land, and they have sheep and horses and a little pool, and it's just got so much character and charm, and the host is incredibly nice and helpful. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I would plan your trip around it because it just made such a difference in my experience, and every experience will be different, but there's a lot of potential for a really blessed time here. How early did you need to arrive to secure a bed? So I only really experienced what we call the bed race once. I'm not sure why it was only once, but when I arrived in, I don't remember which place, but I think the albergue was called the Santa Clara Municipal Albergue, and I arrived at their doorstep, I think 2 hours before they opened, and there was a line of pilgrims outside. And actually it wasn't a line, it was just like a group of people. And so they only had 17 beds available, and I got bed number 16. So I heard them saying you need to arrive before 2 p.m. if you want to secure a bed. But generally it wasn't a problem. I didn't wake up early, I didn't try to rush, and that was the only time I waited in line, and I never had an issue getting a bed. What were the sleeping conditions like, considering comfort and noise? So I'm a big believer in communal preparedness. So let me just grab, you need earplugs and you need a sleep mask. I didn't have any issue. Yes, people cough, people talk, people snore, people crinkle plastic bags throughout the night. They might turn on the lights, but these are your protection against that. And if you're more sensitive than this, I don't really know what to tell you. If you can afford it, book private. If you can't, I don't know. You can try doubling up on earplugs. I did this once when the noise was really bad, but this is the, traditional foam earplug, and then this, if I can get it out, is a squishy silicone one that you can mold to your ear shape. So you put this one in first, and then you just kind of put this one on the outside, and mold it to your ear. So that might help if you're really sensitive. But I actually experienced that the beds are really comfortable. Most of the albergues and hostels have done such a good job considering what a pilgrim's needs are and providing everything in a really comfortable way. And then I think you just need to be prepared for the noise and you'll have a wonderful experience. Yeah. Did you find any unexpected luxury in your accommodation? What an interesting question. I would say that outdoor space and communal space is such a luxury. If they had a garden or just a table to eat at outside, or maybe like a pool, that's always really nice for meeting people, spending time in the sun. Yeah, I really, really appreciate the outdoor space. How was the food on the Camino? Did I have a favorite meal? So I did the Portuguese coastal, so I started in Portugal and finished in Spain. The food was good. Now, keep in mind, I was on a budget. I didn't want to spend too much money. So I was often ordering the least expensive thing on the menu, and I would find that those portions were really small. So it was hard to feel like I got enough food unless I went grocery shopping. So the food is very repetitive. A lot of the restaurants have the same menu. There's a lot of tortilla, Padron peppers, there's sandwiches, there's soups, and it's a lot of like consistency in the flavors. So I liked it, but it does get kind of tiring after a while. And when I got to big cities, I definitely was looking for like an Indian food place or Mediterranean food place. And I started to crave like fresher foods because I feel like the foods that I was eating, they're very like rich and almost like dank. Like well processed and cured or things like that. So I was definitely craving just like fresh, bright foods. My favorite meal, honestly, the peppers are really good. I love the ham, like the Serrano or the Iberico ham is so good. I had a lentil soup once that just blew me away. It was delicious. Also seafood. Hands down, when I got to try barnacles and the velvet crabs and mussels. And I fell in love with tinned fish, just like tuna fish in a tin can. I would always get the fillets, not quite whole sardine girl, but I did try them. So try the tinned fish. Did I ever cook for myself? I went to the grocery store a lot, but I don't really like cooking in a communal kitchen. I just feel that like I have to put so much brain power into cooking that if I have to also be socializing and kind of sharing the space, it's really difficult for me. So I definitely go to the grocery store and I'll get like oats, super easy. I just add hot water from the tap. Or I would get ham and cheese and bread to just make sandwiches. Or if I had the privacy, then I would maybe dare to make pasta. I know that sounds ridiculous. It's super simple. But yeah, I would just mainly get foods that I can eat or prepare super simply from the grocery store. And most accommodations do have a kitchen, and you can always double check that in the app. What's the most memorable meal you had on the Camino? So one time a group of 8 of us went out to a restaurant and we had like scallops and peppers and wine and bread, and that was really nice and fun. And then one time a group of us had the meal provided by the accommodation, and that was also just so nice. So any chance you get to eat with other people, definitely take it. It's such a tradition and part of the Camino, and those will definitely be so memorable. How did you manage hydration and access to water? In Portugal and Spain, the tap water is pretty safe to drink, and then there are fountains, like outside fountains along the way, and some of them will say it's not drinking water, some of them will say it's safe to drink. So kind of just pay attention to that, and then you can fill up from the ones that are safe to drink from. I travel with a Life Straw filter bottle, so I can fill up from even like a dirty pond, and that will actually filter it and make it drinkable. I used it all throughout Mexico, even where bacteria is prevalent in the water, and I didn't have any issue. So highly recommend getting a Life Straw filter bottle, and then you just don't have to worry about it. But on the Camino, it's really not necessary because you will find access to fountains and towns where you can buy a bottle of water, and then tap is also safe here too. So it's not really an issue. You'll have plenty of access to water. What did you do when you couldn't find food or snacks? Again, not really an issue. There are villages all along the Camino, spaced not too far apart, so you will always have access to food and snacks. If there is a stretch in the woods or farmland, you'll actually find quite a bit that you can forage. There are figs and there are grapes and there's apples, depending on what time of year you come. And I also found, like, one time I just sat down to rest and an elderly couple brought me out a bag of apples. Not to say that you can count on that, but I don't think you will go hungry with all the convenience and the food that just grows abundantly around. So never had to go without food, snacks, or water. How was the coffee on the Camino? Well, if you're from Australia or the US or places where we have really, or Thailand has the best coffee, where we have really big like specialty coffee scenes, you might be a little bit disappointed, but most of the cafes are really just basic, right? But I didn't find too many specialty cafes. I think along the whole way I noticed 2. And they would, carefully select their beans. They would roast their own beans, and you could order, like an AeroPress, a Chemex coffee. You could order flat white, or, the ones that I'm more used to. So to have a coffee that I enjoyed, few and far between. To have coffee that got the job done, easy, it's everywhere. Did I get any blisters, and how did I deal with them? I, praise God, hallelujah, did not get any blisters, but I think there are 2 schools of thought when it comes to blisters: pop them or don't pop them. And apparently if you pop them, there's a specific way to do it, like with a needle and thread. I'm not sure. You might want to look this one up. And there's also something called Compeed. And of course I brought bandages. I just didn't need to use them, except for I think on the first day I had a little hot spot, which those are good to pay attention to. If you feel friction, just put a band-aid on before the blister forms. But yeah, I didn't deal with them, and I'm not sure how to properly deal with them, but that's something good to be educated on. How did you physically prepare for long days of walking? I would say stretching. I didn't stretch every day, but I did have a pain in my thigh muscle one day that I was like, if I would have stretched, I wouldn't be feeling this right now. So especially if you're doing uphill one day, or you're planning on walking faster and taking long strides, like really make sure that you warm up your muscles and you stretch before and then potentially after. The thing that I found is best to do at the end of the hike is to put your legs up the wall. It helps with the lactic acid buildup, and it just lets the blood flow away from your feet where it has been all day. So that really helps. Also get a little lotion. They have the tin ones that I love so much here, and just give yourself a foot massage, or if someone is offering feet massage, get one, because it really helps and it feels so good. Did you encounter any health issues, and how did you manage them? The only thing for me was that I got bit by bed bugs on 3 separate occasions, and I am one that has like quite a big reaction to them. My bites get about this big, super hot, hard, swollen. They itch like crazy. They're like almost painful, and they swell up so fast that they like leave me bruised and my skin starts to peel. It's really disgusting. So antihistamines and not scratching them. You can give yourself an infection if you scratch them and open up the bite. It will turn into a wound. So yeah, that's how I managed at least the effects, like the bites of bed bugs. How to manage bed bugs, maybe we'll get into that in another video because it's a whole procedure. Did you ever feel unsafe? And if so, what did you do in those moments? The first time I had to walk in the woods alone, I did feel a little unsafe. What did I do? Honestly, I probably prayed and sang songs, and sometimes I will pick up a stick or a rock because you don't really know what the threat is. If there's going to be a threat, it could be a dog, it could be a human, but better to have some defenses than none at all, especially for a dog. Sometimes you can just like lift a stone above your head and they get the memo to leave. But yeah, I didn't really feel unsafe all that often, but the first day alone in the woods was a little bit intimidating. How did you handle walking in extreme weather? The weather was actually perfect. It only rained on a few occasions, and for that I always had a poncho in my front bag, so I just put the poncho on, and then I had a rain cover for my pack, so I would slip that on, and then I didn't get wet, and it was actually really nice to walk in the rain. Did I feel safe as a solo traveler, especially as a woman? I did personally. I didn't have any issues. I think the Camino is generally a really safe hike or walk or pilgrimage. There's a lot of people around in the albergues. I always felt safe. On the trail, I pretty much felt safe, and if I didn't, then one thing that I always say is like, if you don't feel safe, then it's okay to remove yourself from the situation. Like if someone is walking behind you, just pull over and let them pass. Or one day I was going down to the beach and there was this guy behind me and there was no one else on the beach, so I just stopped and let him keep walking, you know? There's no reason why he needs to follow me the whole way, you know? So don't feel bad about changing your plans or doing any evasive maneuvering. You know, it's better to be safe than sorry. Did you make friends on the Camino, and how did you do it? Yes, I made great friends on the Camino. And how? I think it's just pretty accepted that anytime you're encountering another pilgrim, unless you're just walking, in walking you kind of just say buen camino in passing, but at the albergues or in the kitchen, like when you're paused for a moment with each other, people generally strike up conversation. Where are you from? Where are you walking from? How many kilometers did you do today? Why are you doing this? You know, some people stick to kind of the surface and some people go a little bit deeper, but people will strike up conversations with you and you can strike up conversations with other people. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. So there's always the opportunity to just keep talking, dive in a little bit more. You can choose to walk with people. You can choose to plan to meet up with people at certain albergues, just depending on what both parties want, but it's really easy. How did the pilgrim community impact my journey? In a major way. I did my journey in about 3 weeks, and the second week was distinctly social, and we had a little group that formed, and we just had such a great connection, all of us. We played a lot of cards. We enjoyed like the outdoor areas of the albergues. There was some going down to the beach, some walking together, some you know, eating together, drinking wine together, and the impact was just having so much fun. Yeah, and we're keeping in touch, so it's really nice to have friends that have shared the experience of the Camino with you. Did you walk with people or prefer to go alone? Like I was saying, my first week was alone, my second week was social, and my last week was a mix of the two. But for 7 straight days, I walked with the same person, and it was a really great experience. But there came a time when we both knew we should walk alone again. And I would say I don't regret walking with that person, but it might be better to just walk alone and maybe plan to meet up in a destination. I think doing the walk alone for the most part is really good for that introspection or that time with God, whatever you're there for. It kind of gets worked out when you're walking. And for me, I think I prefer it alone, even though the times walking with my Camino buddy were like peak. They were so good. But I just think it could have been done like walk alone and then socialize in the evenings. And maybe that's how I would do it next time. Does that make sense? You can do a mix of both, but there is something very valuable in walking alone. And also it's just easier to make decisions like when you want to stop, where you want to eat. That's kind of why I travel alone. It's just much easier. What's the best advice another pilgrim gave you on the Camino? I don't know how it came about, but when we had our little group that formed my second week, one of the most repeated phrases was, "It's my Camino," or "It's your Camino," or the way my mom would say it and I say it is, "You gotta hike your hike." You know, everyone's there for a different reason. So I think some of the biggest lessons are just to let other people walk their own Camino. Live and let live, essentially. How did I handle the language barrier with speaking to locals and other pilgrims? Well, obviously I speak English, and it's a bit of a blessing and a curse because a lot of other people know how to speak my native tongue. So whether in Portugal or Spain, you can get by if you know English or just a bit of the local language. You know, always know hello, always know thank you, always know please, enough to just be polite, and then just the desire to communicate with another person goes a long way. A smile goes a long way. You can always do charades, you can always point. Don't underestimate charades. Seriously, I was in Decathlon recently and I wanted to buy a tent. She didn't know the word tent, but as soon as I did this, she got it. What was your motivation for walking the Camino de Santiago? So for me, it was to spend time with God, to grow closer to Him, just to be able to hear His voice more clearly. I really love walking. I love being out in nature, and I feel that that is when He really speaks to me. So to have a dedicated time to just walk out in His creation, it was going to be really fruitful, and it was. And also to raise awareness for the nonprofit I work with called Villadesuso, and to raise support for my salary. So yeah, I make very little each month because they're not able to pay me a lot, but my role is one that I fundraise for. So in sharing about the work that I do with Villadesuso, I was able to raise a little bit more money to be able to support the work that I do. I'll combine these two. So did I have any significant spiritual moments, and how did the Camino change me spiritually? Oh man, my whole life I have seen, especially in retrospect, because I haven't always known God, but I can see how He's been guiding me throughout my whole life, and the way He speaks to me and the way He shows me signs about where I'm to go, who I'm to speak with, and just gives me His guidance. It was really, really clear on the Camino. And yeah, there was a moment where I was debating on coming back to this albergue, and I saw something that confirmed it for me, and that was 2 white horses in a field, because there are 2 white horses here, And I had just been praying to God, should I go back? And then I walked to a field just a moment later with 2 white horses, and I knew it was him saying, yeah, you should go back there. So that was really nice. And then as far as him guiding me to my next pilgrimage, the way he revealed that I should do the Via Francigena in Italy was also through different signs. And yeah, I just love being able to receive his guidance just by going about my life and talking to him and praying, and then seeing what he shows me, taking note, and then kind of getting that confirmation in his word has been really powerful. So has it changed me emotionally or spiritually? I would say I doubt less, and I feel more confident and secure in my faith, and just that I don't have to worry. I really don't have to rely on myself or my own planning or my own ideas of like what security looks like, because he's just got me. He's just got me. And he's going to continue providing for me, protecting me, and guiding me on my way. So that is such a blessing. How did I pace myself to avoid burnout? Great question. I did about 20 kilometers a day on average. I think the most I ever did was 23. And the least I ever did was 6. So definitely around 20 kilometers or less was really, really ideal for me. That was like a perfectly strenuous day, but not super exhausting or detrimental to my body. But you feel the challenge and the reward well enough. So 20 kilometers is my recommendation, but you gotta hike your hike. What are my top tips for dealing with burnout or fatigue? I would say make a point to stop during your walk and rest. Sometimes it feels like you just want to go straight from point A to point B, but I would really recommend taking at least 2 rests during your walk. And when you rest, sit down, take off your shoes, take off your socks, try to elevate your feet. It's kind of normal for people to do that at cafes along the way. And it just really makes a difference in how your feet will feel when you start up again, if you actually like give them a little rub and give them a little elevation. So rest. How did you prevent chafing or skin issues? I didn't have an issue, but I have seen like anti-chafing creams. Like there's some stick ones or just some cream ones. So any place that you might get chafing, you could rub some of that on. And then also just take it easy. Like anytime you feel a hot spot, whether it's from your shoes or a part on your body that's just rubbing, and you think that you're gonna get some irritation, just put something on to cover it, or put some type of Vaseline to help reduce the friction, and just tend to it. How did you manage long stretches of solitude? So I filmed my entire journey, which you can see here on YouTube, and for better or for worse, I really, really enjoyed the process, and I love having the footage to look back on, and I love that it's helping you. But I did have those moments of solitude, and I did have time of reflection and conversation with God, but I did also do a lot of filming. So I never really felt like, oh, this is solitude verging on loneliness, because I was talking to you guys the whole time. I had to run to the store. You'll see I have more groceries on my little table. But the next question is, what was your favorite part or stage of the Camino and why? And I think coming into this town, Carreço, was just breathtakingly beautiful. The cobblestone, the stone walls, the architecture of the houses, the sea view, the lighthouse. It was my favorite stretch for sure, which is probably why I'm back here now. How did you plan rest days? I would arrive in a place, and if I really liked it, I would ask if I could stay a second night. And then after my first night, I would have that day of rest, and then I would stay another night. So there's a rest day. And this is not always allowed when it comes to the public or municipal albergues. They typically don't let you stay 2 nights, but any of the privates or obviously a hotel or a hostel, they have no problem. You can stay pretty much as long as you like, I think. Generally, what time did you start and finish walking every day? I had a pretty good routine, just naturally. This is what my body wanted to do, of waking up around 7:30, packing my bag, starting the walk around 8:15, and typically arriving between 1 and 2. How did you feel once you reached Santiago de Compostela? So many different things. Obviously very just excited that I made it. I felt sad that it was over. I felt very observant of all the people around me and just amazed that they had come from so many different caminos, like not just mine, not just the Portuguese way, but also the French way and the Del Norte and hundreds of other different paths. They came by bicycle, by foot, from so many different countries. Honestly, it was just a sense of overwhelming gratitude and amazement. Where did you get your credential and stamps? So I got my Pilgrim's credential, which is right here, from the American Pilgrims on the Camino office, which is americanpilgrims.org. I ordered it online and had it sent to my mom's house. And you can get it at the start. Like if you start in Porto, you can get it from your albergue, you can get it from the cathedral in Porto, you can get it from the tourist office, or look into how to get it in your home country. There might be like an association that ships them. And then for the stamps, I had this question at the beginning too, and the answer is just about every establishment along the way will have a stamp, but you can get them from churches, your albergue, and also any place of refreshment like cafes, just literally anywhere. And then to get your Compostela, you need to have 2 stamps per day in the last 100 kilometers. And I would recommend just doing that. I've heard that they're strict, I've heard that they're not strict, but it's not hard to get 2 stamps. So go ahead and do that. And then you have the option of getting 2 different kinds of certificates depending on if you did it for spiritual, religious reasons or not. So this is the official Compostela, and when you go to the Pilgrim's office in Santiago, you'll register on a computer and you can tick a box that said you did it for religious, spiritual, or just a posture of seeking, and then you are entitled to get the official Compostela. And additionally, you can get the distance certificate, which has more information on it. It has your distance in kilometers, the date you started and finished, where you started from, and the official route, and then obviously your name. So I got both, and I also got this little scallop shell with the cross of St. James and the disciple James or Santiago on the back. So they have little things that you can buy in the Pilgrim's office too. They have a little chapel there where you can sit and reflect on your journey, which I recommend doing. That was my longest video yet. It was really fun to make, and if you have any more questions, you can leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them for you. What else? If you could give this video a thumbs up, that would mean a lot to me. You could also subscribe if you want to see more, and then to support me, there is a link in the description, and you can also connect with me on Instagram. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time.